Good evening. Welcome to our Bible challenge. It was so nice out that I lost track of time. And here we are almost a half hour late. I'm sorry about that, but better late than never. And we're looking at Philippians chapter 4 and Romans chapter 12. So Philippians 4 and Romans 12. You can look those two spots up. This Philippians 4, starting in verse 10, it says, "But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at the last your care of me hath flourished again, wherein ye were also careful, but ye lacked opportunity." And so Paul is talking to the Christians at Philippi, and he is thanking them for the way they stepped up to help him. They must have given him money or food or clothing or something that helped him in his life. And he said, you were really trying to help me, but because of my travels, you lacked the opportunity to give it to me. And now they've given it to him. But it caused Paul to talk about things. Apparently, he'd had a rough time because they weren't able to get him what he needed, money or whatever, and he had to do without. And it causes Paul to speak about that. He says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." And so Paul says, I've learned in my life that if things are going great and good, to be happy with that. And if things are not going so great, to be happy with that. He says, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound or to have wealth and to suffer need, to be poor, to be full versus hungry. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, he's a wonderful example of someone that's lived life with unwavering faith. If your faith wavers and you don't have any faith in situations, then the truth is you have no faith. If you only have faith when things are going good, you don't have any faith. Faith is trusting God when things aren't so good. And Paul, he had many, many trying times. He was in prison. He was persecuted. He went through shipwreck. He was beaten. They stoned him. They left him for dead. Personal insults, debates. I mean, he was attacked in so many different ways. And Paul says, I know how to get along in humble means. And so the challenge is, don't allow your successes in your life to inflate your ego and cause you to trust self. So just because you have 3 or 4 good things that happen, watch out that you don't get so confident and start looking at yourself and say, man, I'm the man. I can really do good stuff. Be careful. Pride goeth before a fall. But at the same time, don't allow your failures and your shortcomings to question God's presence, God's power, and His love for you. See, faith is rising above all that and saying, no, I'm going to just continue to trust God, good or bad. And that's where this somewhat famous verse comes at this point. And in a sense, that's what this verse is talking about, where Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. That's a bold statement, and people, in reality, they take that verse out of context. That verse really is talking about learning how to be humble, how to be on top of the world, and how to be down in the valley. Whether things are good, whether things are bad, you're trusting God. And, I say often that the Bible's got something to say about everything. And so talking about that particular topic over in Romans chapter 12, verse 3, again, this is Paul speaking, and he says, For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man his measure of faith. And so God, through Paul, tells us we should have a careful attitude and be careful that we don't get full of ourselves and think, boy, I've done all this. I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. Look what I've done. Instead, it's been God right there being faithful. And so whether you've had a good day or you've had a bad day, have faith that God will bring you through it. Trust God.